next session is going to reveal the secret to lasting customer relationships. So now we've got Jon Dick, the Senior VP of Customer Success at HubSpot. Over here, John. Em Wingrove, the CXO of Aptitude 8, and Daniel Zarick, CEO of Arrows.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here and for hanging out as long as you have. I hope everyone is warm and cozy because we're about to heat things up over here.
We're going to get real hot.
We're heating things up because we're talking about what happens after a buyer goes through the sales and marketing funnel, right? Now they're a customer. Well, now what? How do you drive lasting relationships with customers that not only drive value, which is very important, and I'm sure we'll get into, but also drives revenue to the top line and the bottom line. So I think there's a couple different places that we could start, but I would like to recklessly go straight for the tactical. And
why did sales set those expectations? My God. Just kidding. We'll talk about the flywheel later and sales and CS working great together. No, sorry.
So I'm going to start with the hard-hitting tactical questions and go straight for the meat of it, which is what's actually working today in terms of converting customers and expanding their digital footprint or their customer footprint. What works today for you guys?
Hi, everybody. So I work at HubSpot, so we work with a lot of customers, which is great. So one thing I would just note, you just saw a great presentation on onboarding. Our onboarding team uses Arrows to help onboard our customers, and so highly recommend. So what's working right now? Okay, 3 things come to mind with what's working right now when it comes to customer success. I think the first thing is I think the CS industry kind of messed up a little over the last couple years when we swung really hard towards trying to drive expansion of customers. And look, it's not that expansion isn't important. Every CSM wants to drive expansion. Of course they do. Like, who doesn't want to help upsell a customer, expand spend and all that? But I think in doing that, we kind of got away from the core of the job, which is actually to have CSMs focus on helping customers be successful. And making that the way that you actually drive expansion. And so that's kind of the first thing that at HubSpot right now is working very, very, very well is like, we don't want our CSMs to be worse sales reps. We want our CSMs to be an excellent extension of the product to help people use the product better. That's the first thing that's working. And to do that, by the way, the metric you have to focus on is gross revenue retention, not net revenue retention. Because net revenue retention is an expansion metric that, of course, matters a ton to every business and you should do. But I think gross revenue retention, which actually measures how many people cancel and how many people downgrade, is a much more relevant metric for CS teams. So that's the first thing. I would focus much more on value than expansion. And if you get the value, I guarantee you the expansion will come. Second thing is focus on speed. This starts kind of with support. I think one of the things that's happening with Gen AI and support right now, which is so exciting, is that like Gen AI is getting pretty good at actually like resolving questions for customers. One thing that is understated and maybe support teams didn't used to measure as much is that Gen AI not only can answer questions, but it can answer them much faster because there are constraints on when people are available. And so I think the focus on speed kind of matters. You see that in support. I think you see it in new customers as well. It's why we use products like Arrows for customers who are onboarding to HubSpot, is we want them to get fast value very, very quickly. And the third thing that I'd say is working for HubSpot right now is focusing not just on initial adoption, but ongoing adoption, and not just saying like, hey, onboarding is a one and done, and then you're magically going to be successful forever, but just imagining that customers are going to need more help on an ongoing basis to adopt the product. And so those are the 3 things that are kind of working for us. Focus on helping customers get value, focus on speed, focus on ongoing help and adoption.
Really quick, just want to respond to that. I'm pretty sure Yamini said at Inbound maybe last year, like something to the effect of, if all roads lead to the customer, if all of our focus is on what is going to be successful for the customer, what's going to drive value for the customer, some of these other KPIs kind of start to fall into place naturally, right? If we just shift the mindset a little bit to outcomes and value versus, like you said, expansion and dollar signs, I think we can all be successful. What are you seeing?
Ditto to everything Jon said. That was great.
Fair.
No, especially the
Thank you,
use
everybody.
arrows part. That was great. No, I mean, Arrows builds in this world and focuses on this world, and I think HubSpot as a customer's, the things that they're doing are very typical of what we see success with ourselves as a user of Arrows and building value for our customers and across our customer base. I think you're totally right. But we have this line that we say, onboarding never ends. A lot of people say everboarding. You want to get people to that first moment of value, the first kind of go live. Kim talked about time to value. I think a lot of people talk about that. We have customers that think about time to live revenue. It's like, are you actually using it? That's what matters. I mean, if you're sold as a customer and you never actually go live, are you really a sold customer? You really we kind of look at onboarding as an extension of the sales process. You really need to carry all that momentum and excitement into somebody going live, even though they maybe already paid for you. So we think about that a lot. And then I think layering on the use cases over time, not trying to ask people to do too much, but getting them to build momentum early and then expand from there. So that's what works for us. I think the part that really is a thing that we try to carry through a lot of the tool and the things that we do, that Jon, you talked about speed, is we think about empowering the customer. So a lot of teams, like Kim showed in her graph, you go buy something and then you spend all this time waiting on the company to tell you what to do, or having to send emails back and forth with product information, or for services companies, you're filling out forms, or you're waiting to schedule a kickoff call and you're kind of stuck waiting. We try to empower customers so they can kind of make forward progress on their own. And that's ideally what Arrows helps you do, but you can do that without using a tool like Arrows. You can just be better communicators that have more automations and better reporting about where customers are going. So we think about those things.
Handoffs are hard. That's true. Kim said it herself. I know Ryan Gunn mentioned that I work for Aptitude 8. Aptitude 8 is an elite services partner in the HubSpot ecosystem, and I want to share what some of our customers are doing that is actually working. And so at Aptitude 8, we support a lot of B2B SaaS businesses, right? Software as a service. And so it seems like there's this strong gravitational pull right now towards proactivity. So there will always be reactive opportunities in CS. The customer initiates, you respond, and you service the need, right? But from a proactive standpoint, it's a lot more strategy there. And I think to unlock your capabilities and your ability to be proactive, you have to have a lot of data. And more than just data, you have to understand. So in the SaaS segment where we're seeing these trends of proactivity, what they're doing, I think it's because they're already running PLG, product-led growth motions already. So they're already pulling in a bunch of product, app data, user data into their CRM systems. And then they're actioning it from both a customer marketing, a regular marketing perspective, and also on the CS side. And so what that means is that they're anticipating customer needs before they even happen. And show me you know me is kind of dying. Maybe you can laugh at me if you want, but show me you know me works, right? But it does require data. And so we're definitely seeing that integrations are key, and getting the right data into your CRM is key, because you have to know what's going to be valuable for your customer. You have to be able to indicate what might or might not happen and then act on it. So lots of data. We're talking about lots of data today.
We started the day hearing from Ariana and Bruno about everything they're doing at top of funnel. All of that, there was a bunch of really interesting brand stuff on LinkedIn and influencers and all that, which is really cool. There also was just really solid product-led growth of being I know what actions in app actually drive success. For some reason, customer marketing isn't allowed to do that stuff, right? Customer marketing's cool, just send them webinars. And it's I'm sorry, we literally have all the data. We're talking about all these attribution problems in top of funnel. Customer marketing literally has all the data. It's so much easier actually to do really good integrated marketing, customer success, product stuff for customers, because you actually have all the triggers, you have all the data, you can be super proactive. So I don't know, it's just a really interesting thing I've observed over the last couple of years is for some reason, customer marketing stayed very generic, and demand gen marketing became very advanced. And I think it's time for customer marketing to get that level of advanced.
Well, we were talking about this before, where that sits. Where does customer marketing sit? Is it on the marketing team? Is it on the CS team? Which sort of pulls at the string of people, process, and tools, right? How are you organizationally structuring your teams to accelerate as much as you can? What are the SOPs that you have in place to make sure that people are doing their jobs? And then what are the tools that you're using and how are they architected and integrated? We were talking about Gainsight, for example, is a customer success tool. And if customer success team is all working out of Gainsight and they're all collecting a bunch of information there, what does this marketing team do? What does the sales team do? How are we actually integrating what we know so that we can, I don't know, work towards a common goal of making the customer successful? So the people, the process, and the tools are a super critical component here.
I mean, we look at that as like, you should have a single pane of glass for the relationship of the customer, the state of a customer. And, I think you all as a solutions partner who's setting up pretty advanced HubSpot like systems, you kind of know what the state of the art is, and it's easy to forget that most companies don't likely have product data in their CRM inside their HubSpot or Salesforce, whatever it is, and they aren't necessarily, or the little bit they do, it's kind of clunky. And 12 years ago, I was the second product manager at Twilio and spent a lot of time building internal tools and supporting the internal tools and internal teams. And that was such a nightmare having multiple systems. So we've seen the benefit, and Arrows is specifically focused on HubSpot because of such of a benefit of being on one platform, having marketing, sales, success, support all out of one system, one pane of glass. And the integration nightmare, the configuration becomes way less of a problem when you have everything in one system, whatever those systems are. But I think there's still like a big component that people still have to wrap their minds around. Like, this is the integration layer for all the tools and systems you use. You have call recordings, they go in here. You have onboarding tools, that pushes data in there. You have product data, push that in here. And as soon as you do that, especially the next few years as AI tooling and capabilities become more powerful, you want that stuff in one system, and you want that to be a system that is the source of truth, and that's where your team lives out of as well.
And I don't want to oversimplify, by the way. It's very hard to move data around in and of itself, let alone understand and action the data. And then on top of that, I was just talking to someone earlier this evening who was like, oh, we've got marketing on HubSpot, and we've got sales on Salesforce, and we've got customer success over here. Like, yeah, it is hard to put everything under one platform because you may not get all of the features that you're looking for, which really means you have to weigh the balance between, do I want everything under one roof, or do I want to have everything specifically, perfectly my way in completely separate, disjointed systems? And so you have to make some sacrifices on business process and some of your requirements.
Yeah, and you're also, like, we're all used to dealing with resource constraints. Like, I don't know, I spend a lot of time talking to HubSpotters. There's 8,000 employees and they still have resource constraints. It doesn't matter that we're small or big, you still have that problem. Yeah, so it's a common problem. Wouldn't you rather have those resource constraints be focused in a more narrow thing and with other teams? So I think there's a lot of benefit there too.
So we went straight into the tactical. Let's back it up a little bit. Let's zoom out and let's talk about some of the conceptual. I know you mentioned the flywheel. Obviously, that comes to mind. And obviously, I'm going to throw this beach ball over to you, Jon.
Yeah, flywheel. Okay, let's talk about the flywheel. Love the flywheel. Big flywheel fan, being at HubSpot. We've been talking about the flywheel for a while. And I first learned about the flywheel from our co-founder, Brian Halligan. At the time, I was the VP of Funnel Marketing. That was my title, Funnel Marketing. And I got an email from Brian. And he said, Jon, I'm killing the funnel's dead. And I thought I was like out of a job. I was like, oh no. So I very quickly rebranded my team to Flywheel Marketing, and I became the Flywheel Marketing leader. Savvy move by me, because the flywheel ended up being a big thing in HubSpot and with the HubSpot ecosystem. And I think the easiest way to think of the flywheel is just, the traditional way of thinking about sales and marketing and success is a funnel. But funnel is a little bit limited, right? Number one, it's linear, and you spit customers out the bottom, which just, like, that's kind of crummy. And, like, the customer experience tends to get that level of investment, by the way. The investment tends to flow with the size of the funnel stage. And so that's just a really bad thing. The second thing is that, like, what we realized was that marketing teams, sales teams, and customer success teams actually really needed to work together in a whole different way. I think this is probably the thing people most miss when they look at a picture of the flywheel, is they think that marketing owns attract, and sales owns engage, and CS owns delight, which are the three phases of the flywheel we talk about. And the truth is, I actually think it just means all departments work around the entire flywheel, but for different jobs to be done. And so to your question about, like, where does customer marketing sit? Customer marketing sits in marketing. It's a marketing role. And if you want to have the best customer marketers in the world, you should put them on a marketing team because they are going to be challenged to think differently about problems. They are going to get access to the sort of tech and ops support they need to do great customer marketing. You're going to be able to career path them. So I actually think like that's the thing that kind of gets missed in the flywheel is actually like, marketing's job is to really do all like one-to-many engagement at scale. Sales job is to position and sell new products to customers. And success's job is to really help, deliver on what the expectations that were set were. And I think that when it comes to an existing customer that wants to buy new stuff, like CS plays a big role in that. I think one thing that's changed about the flywheel is it used to be attract, engage, delight. I don't think delight's quite right anymore. I think delight might have been a little bit of a zero interest rate phenomenon, a little bit. Not that I don't want customers delighted, I just think the way to delight them is actually by delivering the value that you said you were going to deliver. And I think like I have experienced, in customer success, a lot of people or customers who were happy, delighted in theory based on the experience they got, who left because they just weren't getting the value that they wanted out of the product. So I think if I was going to do a 2024 revision, I might cross out delight and I might write deliver in, and I think deliver is maybe the best way to get to delight, and also speaks, I think, to where we are just as kind of an industry.
What do you think, Daniel?
I agree. It's funny. The Arrows like kind of tagline is we're in the business of creating happy customers, and our shirts say "I love happy customers." And yet we also, to your point around happy customers, it's a thing that we know. It's a great tagline, but it's not really what you're aiming for. You're aiming for successful customers who are getting value, and they could actually be a little frustrated and unhappy, and they'd still probably stick around. You kind of want both, so we think about that a lot. I don't know if I could say any of that better. I think Jon has the experience. I think the thing that's fascinating about somebody like Jon, a lot of people watching this or here may not know, Jon is SVP of Customer Success, but until about 6 months ago, Jon was a marketing person, as you mentioned, and that's a move you don't see very commonly, and I think it was very well-timed by HubSpot to put somebody like Jon with a years, maybe a decade or so of SaaS marketing experience into a customer success leadership role of a, multi-100,000 person customer success org. I think that's going to be something that maybe might become more of a trend. You need to both make customers successful, but we see this in serving a lot of customer success teams. They don't really approach the job with the same rigor around metrics or delivery as maybe a marketing or sales teams historically have. Success is still this relatively new function, and people are still figuring out, defining these methodologies, and then their ability to ask for resources, deliver on the outcomes that they're expecting for their business and for their customers. There's still like a lot that remains to be seen from that, and so I'm hopeful to see more folks like Jon get in these roles that might bring a different level of experience and rigor to those roles.
Daniel, I have a surprise for you. I've got 15 years of experience as a marketer, and about 9 months ago, I moved into CX. So Jon and I have this in common, and I think
we bonded early.
You're the first two.
Daniel and I, the first time we did a Zoom together, it was like a love language Zoom because we were like everboarding, and Em and I, the first time we talked, we were like marketing to CS. So I would say, by the way, as a marketing leader who moved to CS, I do think that like the skills of a marketer really help customer success team scale today. I have learned so much from like the talented CS leaders that are on my team though also, and there were a lot of things that I think I thought were like so simple or so easy, like as an outside marketer looking in, and now I'm like, wow, that is actually like so much harder than I thought it was.
It's really nuanced, a lot of it,
it's
right?
really nuanced, and I think like it's like Abraham Lincoln and like the team of rivals. It's like you like getting people together with different skills also makes a huge difference. So I wouldn't probably advocate to just take a bunch of marketers and put them entirely in charge of CS. But I think having a good mix of marketers and CS people actually is like can be a real dream.
Yeah, you couldn't have replaced your team, but you as a leader who then trusted your team and learned from them, we saw that, in your kind of hesitancy to make early moves. Is there anything that you'd mentioned that you had an assumption around that you now changed your opinion around, or at least understood there was more nuance? Not to put you on the spot.
HubSpot has some unique challenges given the size of our customer base and our ability based on how much customers pay. There's a real challenge that exists at the low end of our market, which is for a lot of our customers, we are their biggest expense. I just talked to somebody right there who was like, oh, HubSpot besides personnel, HubSpot is my biggest expense. I want to get more out of it. And what's really tricky is when you look at it on a spreadsheet perspective as a business leader, I'm like, well, how much human time and effort can I put against that customer based on LTV and unit economics and like yada yada. And I thought as a digital marketer that I'd be able to just go in and lob a bunch of emails and boom, like we'd be cranking. And it turns out it's way harder than that actually to move a segment where you really want it to be more digital-led than human-led. Now, it also, like, I think I'm feeling really optimistic. I have a little saying that at HubSpot anyway, which is like I have new optimism about old problems. I think like retention's one of the oldest problems in like software. And I think that in particular, retention for really SMB-oriented businesses is always been a real problem. And I've got new optimism because what I see coming with AI capabilities has made me feel for the first time like, oh, what we could offer with digital and with marketing automation could actually be like really personal. It could be really good. And it could actually help customers in a way that no marketing email could ever do on its own. So I'm starting to feel like real optimism about our ability to serve that segment. So yeah, that's one of the things, Daniel, that I learned that was harder than I thought it'd be.
It's really interesting to hear that, though, that you did look at it as like, oh yeah, this is a math problem. Not that marketing is a math problem, but it's more, we look at that a lot, right? It's a lot of math, and that success is in some ways, but in many ways has a different approach to it, and that's really interesting.
There's a lot more emotions and one-to-one and human connection, relationships in CS that, for me, was a little eye-opening coming in as a marketer because I, too, thought I could just lob a bunch of emails at them, and it was my account management team that actually reeled me back in and said, hey, you can't automate a message to a customer because if we really want them to do something, if we really care about them, it needs to be personal. And I think you're right, though, that we can get to a place with AI, also with like ingesting a lot more data, making sense of that data. We can make things more personal, and we can create efficiency amongst the CS teams. So, yeah. Do you guys want to talk about real life application, real life stories? Putting it all into
Feels
practice?
like reality TV. We were just talking about reality TV before we got up here. Real life CS stories.
You want to talk smack? Talk reality smack?
No, I
want to hear real
Things
stories.
are going
Behind the
man.
music.
Yeah, do you have any customer stories, any real life, we don't have to say names, but where driving those lasting relationships and expanding the customer footprint is working?
Yeah, one thing I think we see very commonly with our customers is, especially success in anything post-sales is really under the gun. There's a lot of pressure there. We were talking about this at an event last week with another HubSpot solutions partner, a bunch of HubSpot customers. Is people don't realize if you like me as a CEO and Connor here, like you look at success in a lot of these roles, they actually go into a cost of sales bucket from an accounting standpoint, right? So it's really hard to not put all the work that Jon's whole team does. It just factually we have to account for it in a cost of sales bucket. And so the value there is like that actually eats directly into your margins, and you want to make customers successful, but from a business reporting standpoint and how you grow and invest in the business, it's very challenging. So when companies come to us, they are often like, we're trying to grow or double, triple our customer base for the next year, at least how many we're bringing in, and I need my success team to stay exactly the same size. And you're like, great, well, that's what we exist for, and that's what we're hopefully helping, us plus HubSpot and having these systems, and there's gonna be automation and better reporting, and we're gonna do some iterative process, management sort of work over the next year, and you will be able to achieve that. But that is like the reality on the ground. So a lot of our customers, Hungry is one case study we have on our site. That's their story. We have like 3 or 5 customer success managers. We are growing into the US market. They're in Australia. But we need to maintain our quality of support. We need to reduce the time to value, reduce the time to go live, because for this specific business, if a restaurant doesn't go live, they don't get revenue from them. So they actually need to bring the revenue forward to have a faster onboarding, do that for more customers, and the team stays the same size. And so we've seen that a lot, and that's kind of what you do is we look at where does onboarding time or time to go live, time to live revenue, where does that really like create a lot of, where are the big kind of things you can chip away at? They're typically waiting on customers to do the things you need them to do. And so that's where something like arrows and some automated emails or some automated communications out of a system like HubSpot come together. But that's where we think about empowering a customer to do what they need to do to go live faster and getting out of their way. Then they can, some people will go live in 2 days, that other people take 2 months. And then you can kind of redirect your energy on the people that take 2 months. And that's kind of how we think about it.
It's good prioritization. If I may, I've got a quick story, a real life story about a real client of ours, large media company. I probably can't say their name, so I'm not even going to risk getting in trouble, but you would know their name if you heard it. They do streaming services for their customers, and they use a platform, it's called like an OTT platform, over the top, but basically it's like a distribution mechanism for video streaming services. So they got customers that are consuming content, and their first foray into HubSpot was like, well, maybe we can use HubSpot to try and engage some of these customers, try and expand within them, but also like keep them from leaving. And so they came to Aptitude 8 and they were like, hey, we have a bunch of valuable data in this OTT platform. Things like minutes viewed, number of videos viewed, number of logins over time, playlists that the user has created or libraries that they've downloaded. And so they're like, this seems like stuff we could really be using to get ahead of churn, but also see where we might be able to deepen the relationship and deepen their usage of the products. So we're like, okay, cool. We will build a custom integration, an API integration with this tool. We'll bring all of that data in. And we did, and we started to understand that data, right? Having the data is part one, part two is actually understanding and making sense of it. So they started to see, they tackled the churn and prevention problem first, because that was what was hurting the business most. And so what they identified was that if they saw a decline in a certain period of time of logins, probably means that they might pause their subscription or cancel it, right? So that was their first piece. Or if they're not adding things to a playlist, they're probably not engaged with the platform. Great. So that became the first lowest hanging fruit that they could tackle. And they were able to cut down churn in a major way. And then they pivoted over to, okay, how do we engage? And it was super cool because we were able to see the types of active users are looking at different types of videos and pulling things together. And so they felt, can we make a recommendation engine so that the people that are in it can get even further into it? And so we did that, right? We created a series of custom objects and default and custom properties to house all of this information, so that, and associations and association labels, so that they could actually action it. And so they were able to trigger marketing campaigns, create this recommendation engine, and then create touch points, like create opportunities for CS to reach out to customers and say, hey, I noticed that you're doing X, Y, and Z. You should probably also consider A, B, and C. And so it was a really cool moment to see all of it kind of coming together. And going back to my CS ops point here, because having all of that data is one thing, but the people that need to operate the systems and the systems that exist and the data that needs to be there, all of that matters. And it's like an orchestration, if you will. I can't think of a better word, but we all have to be working together towards a common goal. And I heard someone earlier tonight say, well, if marketing has their own goals in their own department, and sales has their own goals in their own departments, CS has their own goals in their own, what are we all doing here? Is it all linear all of the time? I don't think that it is. I don't think that we're constantly just doing linear handoffs to one another. I think we're all working together to make the customer successful. And I'm coming back to your point about driving the actual value and outcomes for customers versus just checking boxes. So that's the story that we're pretty proud of at Aptitude 8. In fact, fun fact, if you ever interview to be a consultant for Aptitude 8, that's a technical interview exercise that we have put together, is like, how would you construct that integration with the OTT platform? So it all comes full circle. Efficiency.
Very cool. Yeah, it's awesome use case.
Yeah. Any other wins or any other cool stories you guys would like to share?
Well, I mean, I can tell you a little bit about what we've done at HubSpot with our customer success team, which there's some good wins in there. I mean, what I'm hearing is a lot of talk about data And that is definitely where our, new customer success strategy starts. And for us, we're a software business that runs on a subscription model and relies on people using the software. Many people in here might have similar. And so it started actually with usage data for us. And what we realized pretty early was we actually didn't have a good, reliable source of usage data that would help us actually help our reps even have the right engagements to begin with, or to be able to even fire customer marketing emails. So for us, it started with can we get all the right data together to actually measure the health of these customers? And I think health scoring is one of the oldest tricks in the book for a CS team, and also is totally worth doing right now because the data that you have access to has changed, your ability to crunch it has changed, what you can do with it has changed. So I think it actually kind of starts there. And that's been really successful for us. And then what we said, well, why don't we just change the whole rep engagement model and the digital engagement model? Why don't we look at every customer on a very simple 2x2, expected value on one axis and usage on the other. And usage for us is correlated with value. So if people are using the product, it's a pretty linear lineup with the value they're getting out of the product. And so that helped us then change, okay, cool, so now you use this usage data and value data to basically prioritize what engagements customers get. And then we changed the incentive model and we said, well, should we incentivize reps differently to actually push that usage? And we said, yes. Now we're changing the enablement for the reps to say, well, what should they get trained on? And now they're getting more trained on usage and value as opposed to selling. And so, if you just go across the whole foundational layer of all the stuff that you would do to help a team be really successful, and then you drop AI on top of it and all that stuff gets actually 10x better, it's really not that complicated to build, some basic stuff with OpenAI to help your reps prepare for a call. If you're a HubSpot customer, that stuff is actually coming out of the box increasingly and it's pretty good. That's probably what I would say. If I was writing a HubSpot customer success case study right now in our own customer success, I'd probably highlight that whole stack of stuff and all the stuff we've built and are actioning.
Another fun wrinkle to that, by the way, I was just thinking, my wheels were turning, customers that have partners attached. So HubSpot has customers, but they also have implementation partners that work with them, right? And so that's a whole other opportunity. I just thinking the amount of time, the amount of hours that I spend with HubSpot CSMs trying to solve for my customers it's amazing because it's a collaborative approach. We're all sort of sitting on the same side of the table and we're all solving for the customer, but that's a whole other angle I think that I guess probably for you have to think about in terms of how are we driving engagement, how are we driving value for our customers. Oh, yeah. Let's look at the ones that have partners attached. And I know there's a ton of good data to show that, HubSpot customers that have partners attached stick around for a lot longer, and I don't know, I will let you rattle those things off if you want. But a final thought from me, and we'll open it up for questions, which I fully hit us with the hardest questions. But a final thought from me is to lead with needs. And I kid you not, this is a core value that we have at Aptitude 8. And it goes back to what Yamini said, right? If our customers' outcomes and their success is our number one focus, the rest, a lot of it falls into place. But we have to be able to drive value for them. And the more that we know about them, the more value we can drive, right? So the more we know, the better we can market to them, the better we can sell to them, the better we can service to them, and the better we can create meaningful touch points every single time we're interacting with customers. So back to the AI versus human thing, I think we'll never get away from the fact that CS has to have this human touch, but I'm excited for the future in terms of what we'll be able to do with automation and AI, and just excited to focus on customers. So with that, unless you guys have anything else.
I think you've got some excellent catchphrases, Em. You're talking about a wrinkle. You got the wheels turning. You lead with needs. This is a talent of yours.
I worked in consulting for Aptitude 8 for many years. So.
It's really good. It's really good. You should lean into it.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
The one tip I have, if you ever present to Jon, you should probably use a 2x2 in your slides. He's a big fan.
I do like 2x2s. They work.
Awesome. Can you guys beat us up with some questions? KPIs, customers. Mike's coming in.
Mike's coming around.
We need background music while we're waiting.
The long and winding road that leads.
So you guys had me at proactive. I love that. And then also AI coming into the mix. As someone who's had some very bad AI customer experience situations, I'm wondering where are the guardrails? You mentioned AI versus the human touch. How do we define the line? Where does it lie? What do we have in place to kind of uncover that?
I have an opinion from a product building standpoint. John, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Like, it's not as much an either or the product shouldn't be building with an either or, especially when there's a customer involved. There are certain use cases where you're, like a low cost ticket reply, like maybe that's okay. But even then that can go poorly, and maybe that's where one of your experiences were. How Arrows is building AI into the product, and how we've always thought about it, is you still have to build a product for humans. A lot of what Arrows is building on the sales and onboarding side is software for humans to interact and collaborate with each other. We can introduce AI in there to reduce a lot of the work that it takes to do those moments, but there still needs to be like kind of a final human approval checkpoint sort of step. So we can get to the point where you're right about to like make an update to your onboarding plan or make an update to your digital sales room with a suggestion that we're making via AI based on the changes in your deal record that it's attached to. But we still don't want to automatically update something that might actually create a bunch of pain downstream, especially in a way that you might not realize. So, I mean, that's my opinion from how, like, we're still figuring this stuff out in terms of how we introduce them into products. I think everybody's getting a little happy-go-lucky with the AI hammer in their products, and, we have to be cautious about how we introduce it. But as you're constructing these systems and putting them in front of your team, hopefully there's a chance that it can help you accelerate up to the point, that last like 10 or 20%. That's where there's a lot of tedious work, like John mentioned, prepping for a customer call. You don't need to spend 30 minutes prepping for a customer call. Like, you can introduce that data into a well-structured place, and then a person can review it for 5 minutes before they get on a call. That's a dramatically different amount of time spent, and probably the system, the AI, can do that much better than a human could jumping between calls.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're using AI to assist a human, you should lean into it as hard as you can, because you have a human who can basically upvote it or downvote it, right? And so like the risk is like super low of being like, I'm gonna give you as a rep recommendations. Like, why wouldn't you try and do that and help them out? If you are having AI directly interact with your customers, though, this is where the question gets kind of interesting. And I think we should first of all recognize that there's really only one customer-facing use case that is like actually crossed the chasm when it comes to generative AI, and that's support. It's really the only one that is like, there's a lot of like green shoots in some of the other use cases. I'm seeing them at HubSpot, how we're doing it, and I'm seeing them for our customers. But support is really the one that has kind of crossed the chasm, and like you can get to 50 or 60% of your support tickets directly resolved with a Gen AI bot with high customer satisfaction scores if you put the time and the effort into building it. And so I think what is really interesting about that, though, is that customers still will say they don't like it, because we have ruined it over the past 20 years by forcing people through terrible and horrible phone trees and chatbot experiences. And so one of the things that has to happen for customers actually is a little bit of retraining on what is possible with an AI bot. And I picked this trick up from Shopify, actually. And one of the things that Shopify has done is they force every customer who wants to chat with a support rep to start with AI. There's no ability to get out by saying agent, agent, agent. Like you have to be in a waiting room for like 3 minutes or something and interact with the bot. And what they've learned is that once customers are actually like stuck in that waiting room, they try the bot again, and they realize actually that the bot's actually really good now at answering the questions, and it totally resets their expectations. It's like a real aha moment for me of just like, there's a little bit of customer retraining that has to happen, and it's like, you got to walk a fine line on it. I'm not just advocating that you all just like shut down access to humans, because when AI gets it wrong, it definitely like gets it like really, really wrong, and you need humans there to backstop it. But I do think there's some customer retraining that needs to happen, and you as a leader have to feel confident in the use case that you're doing that for. So that's kind of my quick POV on it.
I agree with both of you. I think using AI to help you to work versus reaching out to the customer, I think maybe keep that a little human for now. But I want to share an example actually that I learned from Connor, our CEO, from his session at Inbound, which is a good tip or tool that you could use is to take a Zoom call of just sharing your screen of you working throughout the day, doing your typical processes that you do, and leave that Zoom running all day long. And then take that Zoom video and the transcript and upload that into GPT and say, hey, how can I find efficiencies here with how I'm working? And I think that was like a very simple use case, but I had never thought of that, and it was like completely eye-opening for me. So I think, again, using AI to help you work is awesome. The agents are awesome. But me, I'm a little nervous still on actual customer outreach using AI. We'll get there. Automation first.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of risk there. I do think it is one of those things that, to your customer retraining point though, as we all get more confidence in these systems, it's like a natural like widening the highway sort of system. People will use them more. And right now we're kind of trained to reach out to support or help ourselves less often, less frequently. And I wouldn't be surprised if that actually shoots up a lot.
Do we have time for one more? No. Sorry.
Sorry.
Come talk to us after. I'll give
Bye,
you all the
everybody.
answers.
Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you all.